We were just talking about Russia, and I was hoping you would tell me a little bit about what
Yeah.
you're doing with our new friend.
Well, I'm very much involved now with the Soviets, and it grew out of my experience in shooting, where since 1962, I've been competing at World Championships and once in the Olympics against Soviet athletes, and we, of course, fought very hard against each other, but after hours we got friendly, and my buddies from 20 years ago are now high up in the Soviet sport hierarchy, and so if somebody in Russia wants a reference on me, they can find out, they say, oh, he's a square shooter, you know.
So your contacts with Russia go back to your being in the Olympics in '68?
Well, actually, in 1962 in Cairo, Egypt, we beat them in the World Championships, but then they beat us a number of times after that. But anyway, I was approached last summer to help them start a farm magazine on the American pattern. They desperately need to really invent farming in the Soviet Union. What they're doing now is not really farming in the whole systems way, but operating these large factories on the land using equipment operators, different people who work in parts of the system. But they're very inefficient, and they want to break them up into small groups, and they need help in inventing what farming is in their context. And at first I said I wouldn't do it because I'm too busy, but then I get this call from Moscow, and they yell at me, you know, why aren't you helping us? So I said, okay, I'll go over there and talk to you. And we got along very well, and and I love that we love each other. We're very friendly, and they're excellent people. And there is involved in this a state farm near Moscow. It's a joint venture between a Soviet publishing house, State Farm, 30 miles east of Moscow, and Rodale Press. And I'm a member of the State Farm. So, and I worry as much about how things go on that farm as I do on my own farm. And there's tremendous opportunities and problems in both areas. But it's like such a tremendous difference from a year ago or 2 years ago.
It's mind-boggling.
Right.
You've, I know, done some work also with African projects and something called the Cornucopia Project. Do you have any comments to make about either of those?
Well, the Cornucopia Project was a food system planning effort that we did in the early 80s. It's more or less over now, but it was an effort to look at the whole American food system and the food systems of particular states, try to encourage states to produce more food eaten by people living in that region, more localized. A lot of the Cornucopia planning is now being implemented as state policy. We do, through the Rodale Institute, has very considerable efforts around the world, but our major effort now is in Senegal, where we have we call it a RARC, a Regenerative Agriculture Resource Center.
In Senegal?
In Senegal.
How long have you had it?
It's been there about 2.5 years, and it's in the town of Thiès. It's funded by the Pew Charitable Trust. And
Pew is in P-E-W?
Right, in Philadelphia. But we put some funding in ourselves, and AID participates.
And you send people over there?
Well, we hire Senegalese. The original manager was an American who we sent, but he's now leaving and being replaced by a Senegalese. And we, of course, have supervisors who go over. And my son Anthony is very much involved as a documentarian of that effort. But we're talking with, we're setting one up in Kenya, and we've been invited into Chad by AID. So if you come back in a couple of years, we may have 7 or 8 of them.
I hope you do. Essentially, though, what you're doing is helping them learn how to farm in different ways?
We're helping them to see more clearly their own resources related to agriculture and their own biological, cultural resources. It's focused on a lot on better use of manure. They have a lot of animals, but they don't use the manure effectively. And also different cropping systems.
Mm-hmm.
We're teaching them haymaking so that they can confine their animals, get the manure, and instead of letting them graze and have the manure wasted, make hay, feed the animals, get the manure, and put it on the garden. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of. One of the major things that I've done in my life is introduce a new crop, which apparently is successful, Amaranth, and not too many people who ever do that in their lifetime.
No.
And Amaranth is now considered to be like one of the most successful new crops out of America in the last 20 years.
Now, it's being grown in this country as well as other countries, isn't it?
Right. It's all over the world. The Chinese are doing more with it than anybody.
I was going to ask you about China, because you traveled there just last year, didn't you?
Well, no, I went there 15 years ago, but I'm going next year with a group.
That's it. I read about the plans for the trip.
But we had a visit from the CIA a few months ago who heard about our work with Amaranth in China and wanted to know how to identify Amaranth from their aerial photographs so they could count up how many tons of the stuff the Chinese are growing. But I thought that was proof that we're accomplishing something. And they told us that, well, USDA had a conference on new crops in Indianapolis last year. There were 400 people there, and the CIA had an agent in the audience. And they came here and said that of all the crops that were discussed, the only one they were really interested in was Amaranth, because that was like out in the world, and they really felt they had to be able to identify it. The others were just tiny little experimental things. So that was very interesting.
Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah.
Before we end our talk today, I wanted to ask you your memories of being at the Olympics. You mentioned that so casually, and I hadn't come across that information when reading biographies or mentions of your past. It must have been a tremendous experience. What did you shoot?
Well, it was a big part of my life. Of course, I'm a shotgun shooter. I didn't do all that well in the Olympics. There were 52 people entered in my event, and I finished 19th. But I was on the United States international shooting team 9 times. Our team won a gold medal in the Pan Am Games the year before, and we won 2 world championships as team members, as American team. The best I ever did as an individual in a world event was, I think, 7th place in Cairo the first time. But what I did all this while I was running Rodale Press. You know, I started my athletic career when I was 30 years old, and I was in the Olympics when I was 38. And I'm like an intellectual and a businessman. I'm not in college. I never did any sport.
What got you started at the age of 30?
Well, I had been doing some shooting before. I just liked to shoot, and I found that got involved in some small competitions, and I liked the mental challenge. And I found that I have a peculiar talent. I shoot very quickly, and these are very fast targets, so speed is important. And I had a way of I could manage the very fastness that's required, and also I was very serious. I devoted myself to this particular type of shooting, which is not popular in the United States, and also I enjoyed the people. It was my hobby, but it was a lot of work. I retired from competition in when I was 45 years old was the last time I was on a U.S. team, and it was just, the work was too much for me at that age.
Is it more a competition against yourself than it is against other people? So you're trying
Well, it's
to
both.
What
You're trying to do a respectable job for yourself, but it's there's a lot of competition with other countries, and what makes it very difficult is you got 4 Americans there and all these other countries, and you're shooting for the United States of America. And you go out there, you may have a cold or feel lousy, jet lagged or whatever, and you've got to hold up your end, and it's very stressful to leave your buddies. You know, it's like,
Of course. You don't want to let them down.
right?
Or the country down.
Yeah.
Mr. Rodale, you've certainly not let our country down.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for letting us come today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.